All right, everybody. Oh, how about another week of House of Mirrors? How about that? Does that sound good, or does that sound like no fun at all? Get into your stance. We're going to ride the waves, the cosmic waves, and then say hi to the Arkansas studio. Now I had massive amounts of new projects, new studio, new software stuff. So gosh dang it, keep on tinkering with the audio. So couldn't figure out how to turn it up without getting it too saturated on the outside. I need Milos to come help me with the audio portion apparently. So here's the summary slide. All right, so what are we looking at this week? For those of you who are new, just a little background. We're going to take the astrology. We're looking for the overlap in all this. And you can see there's just a tiny little overlap in these circles. That's what's called the main influence. Later, we're going to do the triangulation for the solution. And that, in my opinion, is the most important part. If you don't have time for this, I don't know, roughly 40 minutes, maybe 30 to 40 minutes, just slide it off to the right and make sure you get the takeaway. The takeaway is what behaviors are there. So there's a big difference between the influence, which you're going to feel, because right now it looks like truth is evading us. And that can feel like the House of Mirrors, but there's a difference between what you're feeling and then how you should behave or what your actions you should be taking. So I think that solution is the key point of this, and that's towards the end of the show. All right. But for now, the influence, it's important to know what to look for. And in the astrology, we have that one-sided layout. We talked about that last time. We have that supermoon. This is going to be, the SuperMind. That's Mercury, the lower, and the higher mind, the Jupiter, together. And that's the end of that this week. You got that seemingly eternal square, Uranus and Saturn. Then you have a new moon in Pisces. And then you have an interesting conjunction with that new moon, which can really make things the House of Mirrors, potentially. Then you have the I-Ching that says we're centering in truth. Interesting. So that's on one side of it. That'd be the SuperMind. SuperMind's probably got a lot of truth in there. I'd be interested to see what the SuperMind does, the Mercury and Jupiter conjunction, and then the new moon in Pisces, which is very dreamy and very illusion. And so are you seeing the truth, or are you think you're seeing the truth? You might be really embedded in it and accidentally biting off on a mirror over here than in the House of Mirrors. So it's that thirst for truth. Then we throw in this other side on the other circle here is the dream bot. That's the collective unconscious. That's what we're dreaming about. That's the subconscious at a collective level. And there's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. In the world of radio frequencies, if there's too much noise, it's hard to really tune into that carrier frequency. That's where we're going to carry in the information or the sound wave or the main voice or whatever's being broadcast. If you got a lot of noise, it's harder to ascertain what that main message is. So that's what we have in the collective unconscious. That goes right along the idea of lack of truth or finding the truth. And then interestingly, we have that romance. Well, the romance is going to be a part of the Venus aspect to the new moon, the conjunction. Fairly high congruency score. And let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with the dream bot. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that now. Hit the like button. Thank you, everybody, for sharing, for commenting. We almost had as many comments last week as likes. Unbelievable. You know how great that is for the algorithm. Thank you, everybody. And it is good to hear from you all, from your neck of the woods. I don't get a lot of chance to see outside of most of my clients from Arkansas, but it is nice to see and hear from folks from all around the world and see what's happening there, because I don't get a chance to climb onto social media. And when I do recently, I notice myself yawning like more nothing burgers lately, but maybe I'm not looking in the right places. So Annotate those down below. And if you don't like my sound, please comment. And I'm just on this journey of perfecting it. Maybe I need to have Milos out here and really fine tuning this stuff for me. All right. Here's the Dreambot collective unconscious. Let's zoom in. And what we have is fan, number one word. Now, fan could be a football fan, or it could be a ceiling fan, or it could be shit is the fan. Because also we have in this red meme, all the red arrows, whirlwind, noise, shred. So there is a lot of confusion or noise in a sort of a vibrational sense. So harder to find the truth. Then, interestingly, I find it interesting, we have the romantic connection, the top word being sex, and then with other relationships. So it's the intimate relationships, but what I wanted to show you, there's also these other relationship words like niece, but it's not so, it is relationship oriented, but it's not just family, or it's not just your good friends. I think this is more of the romantic sort of relationships, the intimacy. All right, so that's that. And so now let's get into the astrology, the meat and potatoes of this CIRF report. Here's our summary slide. You can see that Mercury is going to slide into Pisces. It's going to make your mind really confused, hence the noise in the mind. So the SuperMind ends, so you'll lose the Jupiter positive influence and the wisdom from Jupiter. And Mercury kind of goes on its own into Pisces, like jumps into the ocean, jumps into the confusion, the fantasy, etc. And then next week, the sun is going to be going into Aries. You know what that means? Spring equinox, folks. Easter coming up, and that full moon coming up. All right. And some green. A lot of these reds are conjunctions. There's really only one square left, and that's up here. See? Saturn and Uranus squared, and it just seems like it. You see, it's getting lighter over here, out here, and then Saturn. Then, Saturn will go into a. What am I thinking? Lost my train of thought. Going into regression. Why am I thinking of the wrong word here? Anyway, all right. Let's move on. I know what you guys know what I'm thinking. Thursday, the 11th, retrograde. I'm doing hypnosis all this week, and so we're doing regressions, all right? So that's why my mind's going straight to regression. All right, retrograde for Saturn, but that's not right now. That's a lot later. All right, so on the 11th, March 11th, big news. There's two big groupings here. And we have the sun and Neptune together within a degree. And then the moon is coming in. She's not quite there yet, so that'll be a new moon when she arrives. But then you've got Venus. So you have fantasy with Neptune, dreaminess. Neptune's home, but within the orb of sun, and so is reduced. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean the fantasies are less strong? Or does that produce even more inaccurate dreams? It's probably different for everybody. But then you got this Venus coming in here, and Venus in Pisces is like uber connected, uber self-sacrificing for the betterment of others, for the keeping the peace and all that. And so mix all that together, and you've got some focus on relationships, but in a dreamy sort of sense. It could be fantasy for a lot of people. It could be this self-undoing sort of fantasy. So it could be going into areas that might get you in trouble. That could be the influence. All right, so watch out for that. And then you've got the end of Jupiter and Mercury. They're 5 degrees away at the start. So by the end of this week, they'll be outside or just about outside of an official conjunction orb. But that's the SuperMind in truth finding Aquarius and truth delivering knowledge Aquarius. And so that what I called SuperMind is dissolving. And so it's coming into more of a Pisces fantasy. And that's going to be watch out for that transition. That's going to be my advice for this week in terms of what's going on in your head, is watch out that transition from super truth to almost no truth, potentially. And some of you may not notice that. So I'm asking you to really pay attention to that. It's going to be a gradual process, but it may be a fairly fast process for us. Then we have that continuation of Mars trine Saturn square to Uranus. The one that looks like it's decaying, it's segmented square here, is Uranus and Saturn. And that's the one that's really challenging the status quo. It's changing it. It's in the oven. It's changing. It's pressurized. It's like a kiln. It's pressure. It's pressure cooking. And so that Saturn in Aquarius is the status quo at a collective level, a collective status quo. And it has to change. There's just too much pressure. But it's going to take time. Saturn doesn't like to change. So it takes time. So whittling away at it, whittling away. And guess what? Well, as it's changing, it's giving a thumbs up or a release. As Saturn is frustrated, as it's forcing to be changed, it's releasing its energy over to Mars in adaptable Gemini. And so Mars, after being in Taurus for so long, is happy. Just give me stuff to do. Give me, come on. And so it's a great outlet. So do stuff, get stuff done. That's the nice energy of Mars in Gemini. All right, moving on to the 12th then. An opportunity starts to pop up here. It's the Sun in Pisces, sextile. That's the opportunity of Pluto. And there's another transformation and deep passion, deep inner power. An opportunity for ego to find his or her deep inner power. And in this case, we want to look up. Why? Because Goat's Capricorn is climbing the mountain. It doesn't even know to look for mountains. It just always find him or herself on the mountain climbing. And so look up in this case for high goals, because there's a lot of opportunity here to empower yourself with some good goals, some good high goals. And then everything else is, the moon's is powering closer and closer. And we are 6 degrees away now from each other, where our supermoon is almost complete. Handing it over to the dreamy new moon that's happening here, extra Pisces. All right, and then the new moon in Pisces is conjunct with Neptune, conjunct with Venus, what we talked about before. And so this is Saturday the 13th. In the central time frame, it should be about 4:21 a.m. And it's a new moon, so by its very nature, it's going to be completely dark. The moon is, so you're not going to be able to see it. And it's going to be in Pisces, so self-sacrificing, very dreamy. This is a new cycle in the core of creation, because as Pisces in the zodiac is the last sign, sort of the ending of a cycle. So this is the cycle that ends the cycles. And we're going to start the new cycle when the next new moon is in Aries. And so this is the end of the end, the ending of the end, the last, the beginning. The new moon here in Pisces will be the beginning of the last cycle, or the ending cycle, all right? So now we have 2 sextiles. We have the new moon now, sextile with Pluto. So the old is dying away. So we just talked about with the cycle. These new moons are cycles, every month or so ish, 28 days. There's another new moon and another different context in another cycle. And this one just feels like the end. In terms of this, there's that opportunity. it feels like the end, but remember, Pluto is the beginning too. It's the rebuilder. Shoot for the stars. And that was a sort of a metaphor, because as you're looking up to the mountain, which the Capricorns tend to do with their goals, hey, the sky is pretty close to that too. So do be looking up at the stars. And that sort of refers back to the Pisces. I mean, they're all stars here, of course, and planets, but in this case, Pisces is part of that universal feel. And you can look out, a Pisces looks out into the sky and just, I mean, we all feel this, but especially Pisces, just feeling how connected everything is. And so shoot for the stars. It's not just a metaphor in this case. It's that Pisces way, and how to be, you got that power, that goal-oriented, transformational Pluto power as an opportunity for this new moon to really empower you to look up and gaze at the connectedness across the universe. And it's not just a fantasy. It's who we are. It's our birthright to be connected. And then that same trine. All right. Sunday, the 14th, we have a new square. And Mars is going to make a square to Mercury. Now, it's going to take a while. This is just the very beginning. Mercury at 28 degrees Aquarius. Mars at 6 degrees Gemini. But this is sort of what starting to taint the Mars adaptability. We still have that trine from the being chiseled Saturn and status quo, but it's sort of tainted, and so we got a little pressure of thoughts, maybe an added pressure of maybe feeling like you're on the stage, and it's not really clean energy. It's sort of a little second guessing yourself, a little pressure of the mind. So stage fright can kind of be a thing here. And then the moon's going into Aries. Yeah, second guessing your ability to get stuff done. That's going to be you're going to be your own worst critic right here. And interesting how very occasionally you'll see squares that are from two air signs, two of the same signs, in this case air. So it's all mind, and it's going to be thoughts that are your own thoughts. You're going to be thinking about what other people are saying about you, and it's going to put pressure on your Mars to get stuff done. I'm not saying don't try and get stuff done. It's just watch out for the thoughts that prevent you from getting stuff done. All right. And for some of you, just ignore them. But for the vast majority, I would say to be aware of that self-critic. We all have the self-critic, the inner dictator, and it doesn't help our performance. It only actually makes our performance worse. So be aware of it. Then Monday, the 15th, we have Mercury eventually, so this is halfway through the day, Mercury is going to go into Pisces. That's going to be later in the evening on the 15th. That's Monday. And Mercury is in detriment. Great. So not only do we have the dreaminess of your ego, relationships, and Neptune and fantasy itself, but we also have the mind or rationality is down in the waters of Pisces. So it's in detriment. So thoughts really become potentially problematic. Your trust level for your thoughts, your very logic, even like setting up a pros and cons list, is untrustworthy when it's in Pisces. So watch out for that. According to human design, we shouldn't be making pure decisions from just logic alone. And if you go into human design coaching or whatever, they'll say, don't even use that. We have an inner authority that each one of us has a unique authority to check in with. And you need to know what that authority is. And it's none of us are up in our head to get that authority. They're all down in our body. It's a feeling sense. Some people will call it intuition. So they teach you how to get that intuition. And you're really going to have to rely on this starting on Monday evening when Mercury goes into Pisces, because now if mind, according to human design, isn't reliable for decision making, it really isn't. Even if you don't like a human design, now you have to acknowledge, hey, don't use your mind for decision making. Sounds weird, doesn't it? So this could be a great time to get a human design reading. And if you want one of those, interzention.com. Links are, I think, down below. Just go to the website and hit the contact page. Then on March 16th, you have the moon going over change orange. So you got fast moving change. Things are still dreamy. Even changes seem dreamy. There's another weird one for you. But insights could be coming from your dreams. That's a real thing here. Fast changing erratic emotions. Yeah, but there could be some real insights coming from your emotional body. So really feeling that, really experiencing that from Taurus perspective, which they're both in, will give you potential life-changing insights if you feel your emotions deeply. All right. Wednesday, the 17th, we have ego and relationships are empowered, and the dreams show you the way. So you've got those two. Okay, yeah, now Venus is in sextile to Pluto. So same thing now, and we include, same thing we talked about before with an opportunity to feel your inner power. Now you include your relationships in that. That's where this collective is. The collective unconscious is already preparing for that, that sextile. Seriously, it's an intimate place. It doesn't, but it's a very self-sacrificing place. It's about connectedness and harmony with others. It's very peaceful. This one doesn't have to be romantic. That's not the most romantic place for Venus, but it can be very romantic. So I'm not saying it's excluding romance, but like the Dreambot was more intimate and sex oriented. That's not necessarily what this is. Venus is just connected across the universe, and we're all interconnected, and you might have more friends during this period of time, and everyone's your friend, and that sort of thing. It's just the connectedness to it all. Pisces can burn bridges though too. You can really get frustrated with that Venus in Pisces. If the other people aren't responding to the Pisces energy or to yourself, then you can tend to burn that bridge and really get resentful and then point the finger. It's their fault. So I've seen that a lot with Pisces. So watch out for that. All right, here we go for the I-Ching. Let's take the highlighter off. We have 61. It's centering in truth. We're a wind over lake. We have one change line. And obviously centering into truth lets you know of your own prejudices. Hopefully you start to realize how what you thought was true was really just an opinion, was really subjective experience. And so diving into the facts, but like we showed here, that's the hard part in this week, is finding the golden absolutes. There's so much noise around. It's going to be, as hard as it was before, now it's going to be even harder with the energetic forces to find the truth. So you might want to be finding the truth or centering in it, but just knowing that it's just hard. It's hard this week. And some of you might just go ahead and say, I don't even feel like trying to hunt for the truth. And you'd be warranted, because when we put that change line in, we're going to get to the solution. We're going to put that change line in. But first, let's hear from our sponsor. Okay, here's the solution. Before we get to that, just a heads up, I am in certification training for past life regression. It's fantastic stuff. Fantastic. So if you're interested in that, you don't have to comment below. You can just go to interzention.com and just get a hold of me. And I'm I'm looking at about 3 weeks out for scheduling now. So grateful for people who seem like they're really getting great help from me. And it warms my heart. So if you're interested in that, it could be far out in terms of scheduling, but we're looking good for the services that we can offer. All right, put that change line in. It was up at 6, line 6. Put that change into yin, and you get 60. We went from 61, just down 1, to 60. And look at what we have. We went from finding the truth to, I think we're just going to set some limits and connections. Isn't that crazy? So there's where the dream bot is. Half of that dream bot was in the connections part of the solution. And so limits are necessary to channel energy, guide purpose. Limits is absolutely vital to every healthy relationship. You're not going to find a healthy relationship that has too soft of boundaries or no boundaries at all, or too rigid of boundaries. In order to have a healthy relationship, they must have healthy boundaries. There must be some boundaries there. Having no boundaries in any relationship or one relationship, by its very definition, means it's probably an unhealthy relationship. But then if you get too rigid and you apply too many rules to the relationship, then it gets stuffy and then dysfunctional. So we've got that too. So there's going to be, on all this is a balance. That's what it's asking you to do. Balancing you but you and the people around you, is setting those boundaries. It doesn't mean that you have to put walls up. It just means making sure that you're communicating more of what you need, and expectations of others, not being a rude authoritarian, but balancing that out. And also, what's the tendency here? The tendency with the Pisces energy, especially Venus in Pisces, is to give it all up, is to be too self-sacrificing. So if anything, it's putting boundaries around yourself and reducing your need to pour out your entire glass to help out other people. Make sure you've got your full glass before you help others, especially in this Pisces energy. For a lot of people, that's going to be challenging, and it looks like a form of selfishness. So so we got a really interesting thing here. This is the new moon, right? It's our calculator. I took the new moon on the 13th, and I put the tropical, I plopped it right in here. I spun the dial to make sure that it's lined up. And look at what we have. See this real red arrow is where the new moon is. It points you to where it actually is on the dial, and it comes out to the very first line of Rave Mandala 36, and then it's too close to call. It is right on the cusp of Sidereal Aquarius and Sidereal Pisces. So I elected to, we have so much material here, I elected to not have a sidereal solution, all right? Brand new. So probably this is the first time that's ever happened. I don't have a solution because I don't know which way that is. It's right on the cusp. But we can look at hexagram 36 in the rave. So let's go do that. Take this highlighter off. The gate of crisis. Oh, that goes back to the dream bot. Chaos, noise, shit hits the fan. I'm not saying that shit's going to hit the fan, okay? I hope it does. Or I guess you gotta be careful what you hope for, because it might just happen. The gate of crisis, the potential of recognition through feelings, leads to possibility of change. We've been through this one a lot. The energy overwhelms this possibility, and change becomes neither something that is dreaded or embraced, and fuels a life of expectations and inevitable crises. But here's what I wanted to look at, is because when we look at this hexagram, this gate 36 in more detail, first of all, you see the darkening of the light, and then what you're going to notice, okay, so how does the levels here, or the lines, you know, the hexagrams in the I-Ching have lines. There's 6 lines. Well, when we get into the astrology and the Rave mandala right here, where does that line start? Does it start at the beginning of the 36, the gate, or does it start at the end? You know, because when you look at when you look at this, where is the first line? The first line is down at the bottom. It goes 1, 2, 3, and it goes higher. Well, apparently, from what I have been trained, it's that the lines actually start at the beginning of the hexagram, which is kind of backwards that I would have thought, because China starts at the reverse side, or the I Ching starts in the reverse side. So anyway, we have the first here, and that is the resistance. This is gate 1, gate 36, line 1. Resistance, the energy and determination to persevere in the face of opposition, the emotional power to handle crisis. Blah, blah, blah. That is interesting. But this is a new moon, and guess what? The moon is quickly going to move through all these lines. We have first resistance, then we have support, then we have transition, the point at which decline has exhausted its power. That's the old. The old is losing its power halfway through. Then we have espionage, the ability to prepare and anticipate decline through the accumulation of secret, privileged information. Holy crap, what have we been talking about this whole time? Is the age of Aquarius. That's what it sounds like. And then we have line 5, the underground, perfected survival regardless of conditions, immunity to crisis as both generator and survivor. And then the last line, justice, the inevitable survive of right, the knowledge and attendant faith that the powers of darkness eventually destroy themselves. This is incredible. Those whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make mad. The correctedness of crisis when it arises out of pure feelings. All right, so there's a lot there, and I'll take this off so you can snapshot that and hopefully be able to read it all if you want. I highly encourage you. And guess what else is the sun is also, this is happening right at the new moon. So the moon's going to whip right through these 6 lines, but the sun, day by day, each day, you'll have a new line that it's going through, right? And it ends up in justice. Man, I don't know. Very metaphoric for what we all want, I think, is justice and a new paradigm. All right, let's go to the summary slide. Here's the influence. It's the thirst for truth. I put it on scrolls. Yeah, so what's the influence? Does it mean you're going to get the truth? Probably not. The influence is the thirst for the truth. So it's probably absence of or too much noise to be able to ascertain the truth. I would get out of the mind this week, especially as SuperMind erodes away. Get out of mind and get into body. Sorry for that noise. Get into your body. Feel your way through this week. Then here's the triangulation. And I found it interesting how Colette Baron Reed found exactly the same thing as the CIRF report. And her last thing to prepare for this week said how to set boundaries. That I thought was incredible. That she's getting the same solution as us. I-Ching said limits and connections. That's where the boundaries, but you have to define the boundaries and work to optimize the balance between self and connections. The Rave said the gate of crisis, emotional power to handle crisis, and the resistance to change will bring crisis. Think about this. The I-Ching 60 was about limits and connections. That's at all levels, as above, so below. So you're having to analyze your relationship with yourself. There's boundaries there. Relationship with your closest family and friends, and then your relationship to the greater good, the collective, the nation, the state, the community, and setting boundaries there too. That might be where the crisis is, the crisis of boundary. Who knows? I just thought of that. All right, here we go. The overall triangulation, when you include the I-Ching, the rave, and even the new moon. Last week was the revolution of self-identity. This week is about striking a balance between boundaries around self and your connection to the outside world. And it may be confused because of the Pisces influence. Depending on how you do this will determine your role in the coming crisis. Will you have the emotional power to handle it, or will you have resistance to the change and then cause the chaos? The Sidereal solution is about humanitarian and collective emphasis. That's when we combine the Aquarian and the Pisces together, because it's right in the middle of that. But it confirms the transition from last week to this week. It's about establishing, confirming, or orienting yourself to the world around you. Balance is the key. So mindfully adjust your boundaries to evenly accommodate the collective without sacrificing too much of you. And does that not sound just like the Venus conjunct new moon? It's about relationships, a new cycle. It's the finale cycle of the most intimate connection. And I don't mean sex in this case. I'm not going where the dreambot was, but the most intimate thing that you could do even for yourself. And this is warranted with the Venus conjunct new moon, is your relationship with yourself. I can't think of a more intimate need there. Just don't forget about yourself. And that has to do with boundaries too. All right. All right, folks, I got to get back to class. So it's great seeing you here today, and we will catch you next week. Have a great surf week. Bye now.